Switch 2 is finally real after months and maybe even years of rumors. I like my Switch as much as the next guy, but it was time for a new console. This was such a legendary console, and now that we're getting a second one, I am really curious to see on what they're gonna do. So here's my predictions for the Nintendo Switch 2, its games, and some of the other stuff that we can't predict about the system so far. There's a lot of fun content I want to make on this brand new console, as the original Switch is probably my favorite console of all time with its amazing game library, as I'll also be going to the pre-release event in May here in the Netherlands to try out the all-new system. So there's a ton of content on the way. So make sure to like, comment, and definitely subscribe to not miss out on any of the content. And let's jump right into the predictions, shall we? First of all, what do we know so far? We know the console is called the Nintendo Switch 2. We know that the Joy-Cons are detachable. It has some brand new buttons on there. And we know of one first-party title that it will be coming to the console, which is an all-new Mario Kart game. Now, I don't want to touch too much on Mario Kart when it comes to this video, as I want to make a different one in which I talk a lot more about what I'm expecting for it and, you know, how it will work on the Switch 2. But I do gotta say that I'm really excited to play it, as we've been playing Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for almost 10-11 years now. And it is just insane that we've been playing for so long the exact same game. Although, yes, it's been updated a bit more over time with like the booster course pass and new characters and the ports and such. But having a brand new game is something completely new, and with how much different it's already starting to look, I'm excited for it. Although I still don't know how to feel about the new Donkey Kong design. When it comes to the name Nintendo Switch 2, I'm still kind of torn on it. I know some people like it, and you know, PlayStation has done it before, so it works, you know. We have the PlayStation 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. But it's something Nintendo's never really done themselves before. Yes, we did have the Wii U before, which failed because of, you know, the U in the name. But back in the day, we did have ourselves the Super Nintendo after the original NES. And I feel like a name like Super Nintendo Switch would have suited Nintendo a whole lot more. Although I still feel like it's a usable name. I'm just personally not the biggest fan of it. But what's gonna make this a sequel compared to the original Switch? Well, we already know of the Joy-Cons that will be attaching and detaching via magnets this time around, rather than by sliding them on like the original Switch. And there's a new button on them on the bigger Joy-Con, which I feel like is going to function for a new sharing system, either for a new Miiverse or for regular social media, because Nintendo knows how important social media is for their games. Remember Animal Crossing New Horizons back in 2020 with how many people were sharing screenshots of it, or, you know, whenever the different game releases. It could also be a calibration for the motion controls for the Joy-Con, or something completely different, like for helping out the mouse, which is also a new thing when it comes to these Joy-Con. But personally, I believe it's a sharing feature, as the PlayStation also has it, and I feel like it's the easiest guess. But I feel like it's quite mysterious. Now, if we're talking about how good the system will look and its games, I feel like when we're talking about it being docked, I think we're gonna get 4K. I don't know if all these games in 4K will be running at 30 frames or 60 frames a second, as we've also seen Pokemon Scarlet and Violet function horribly on the original Switch. But we gotta go for something higher here, and to make it a bit more different and more powerful compared to the original Switch, of course. Back when the Switch first came out, seeing the Switch being played undocked on 720p was still wild to me. Such a good looking console on the go. And ever since, we've had other consoles also come out. A Steam Deck, for example, which is pretty much a mini PC in your pocket. Although I don't feel like Nintendo's going to try and aim for it running as well as a Steam Deck, I do feel like undocked they're going to try and aim for a 1080p, hopefully 60 frames a second, maybe 30 frames a second, depending on the game. But I do feel like they're going to try and upgrade that as well, as it has been around 8 years since the original console launched, and there's a lot of time that has passed, so they could definitely upgrade that a bit. I don't want to go off too many rumors, but they did kind of mention the fact that while being docked, it is going to run at 4K, so that is kind of secretly my hope. It would be nice seeing the console run at 4K docked and 1080p undocked, but this is Nintendo we're talking about. Graphics is not their most important thing, although compared to any other jump, I do feel like this one is way more important, as it definitely has to show you why you need the Switch 2 over the Switch 1. Pricing is something else that's interesting when it comes to this upgrade, as the original Switch came out for $299 USD originally back in 2017, and the OLED came out in 2021 for $349. Now, over the years, we've had some special editions of the Switch, but never once where the price of the system itself dropped. Just some more games that were included, making those games more cheaper, but the console itself, not. I'm curious on seeing whether the prices of those consoles will be dropping around the time the Switch 2 is going to come out. But either way, I do expect this new console to be launching at $399. Nintendo's strategy is to always undercut the competition, which they've always done in the past, and $399 is still below the Xbox Series as well as the PS5. And not just that, it's only $50 more than the Nintendo Switch OLED. It's not too much more than the original Switch or the OLED, and it's also justified with the new upgrades that you will get with the new system, while not making it as expensive as the more powerful alternatives, being the PS5 and the Xbox Series. Coming up next is my favorite part of this entire prediction video, which is predicting the all new games. Because what's more important about a new console than the games you'll be able to play on it? Now, the only new game we know of so far is the all new Mario Kart, for which I'll be predicting that it's going to be called Mario Kart Max or Ultima, something like that. Kind of like in the vein of Speed, as I feel like the main gimmick of the game is going to be that you're going to be going extra super fast, as you can see from the very large pathway at the end of the Mario Bros. Circuit stage from the original Switch 2 trailer. With Mario Kart Tour and Live Home Circuit, they've shown that they don't really want to stick to the motto of calling their games 7 or 8 by numbering them, but rather by calling them different way. So I feel like they're going to drop the anti-gravity motif and get a new gimmick in, for which the name will be based off of. Now, on the topic of Mario, I do feel like we're going to be getting ourselves a brand new 3D platformer as well. Now, I don't feel like it's going to be an Odyssey 2, as it's been 8 years since the original Odyssey, and if we're going to Switch 2, might as well have some new things. An Odyssey 2 would be nice, but just having an all-new 3D Mario would be great either way. What I'd personally like to see is an expanded upon version of the Super Mario 3D World and Bowser's Fury. Mostly the Bowser's Fury part. The developers of Bowser's Fury from Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, the side mode, actually stated that it took them about a year to make the side mode. And since it's been 4 years since then, and 8 years since Odyssey, I feel like it's a reasonable enough of a time to have passed for the next game. I feel like this game is going to come out later on, not at the launch of the system at all, but like about half a year later, just like Super Mario Odyssey originally did for the original Switch. Next, I want to touch on the pack-in title, as I feel like this system is going to have a pack-in title, but it could also not be, but I'm going to predict it's going to have one. Back with the original Switch, we did get ourselves 1-2 Switch at launch, but that wasn't a pack-in title, unlike Wii Sports, which is seen as a fan-favorite game that came alongside of your Wii originally. Now, I don't feel like it's going to be another 1-2 Switch type of title, as everybody 1-2 Switch kind of flopped and was just kind of not good. I don't think it's going to be a Wii Sports type of game either, because Nintendo Switch Sports didn't do too well. But what I'm kind of going at is two angles. It's either going to be a Tomodachi Life-esque game, a sequel to the 3DS game that a lot of people want and want to see a sequel or a port of after Miitopia got one for Nintendo Switch, or a Clubhouse Games type of game. I feel like the second option, the Clubhouse Game type of game, would be the best thing, as it would have quite a few games to have in there and a lot more replayability rather than a Tomodachi Life, which I feel like would be better to have later on or just by itself. The idea of having one of those types of games is very intriguing to me, as, you know, you could just grab the Switch, take out both Joy-Cons and just start playing with your friend, brother, sister, cousin, and just have a great time right out of the gate. Now, we're still going to get ourselves a couple new games for the original Switch as well this year, and I've heard a lot of people talk about whether we're getting Metroid Prime 4, maybe Pokemon Legends ZA on the Switch too. I don't feel like that's going to be the case. I feel like we're going to get ourselves a couple more games for the Switch, mostly ports or remasters. As the system is still doing quite well and is on course to set a new record, you know, for the most sold console of all time, which is, you know, an insane feat. Not just that, but it's already been confirmed that we've got backwards compatibility, so I don't really see a reason to have a Switch 2 version. Just have the original Switch 1 and play it on the Switch 2. It could just work like that. Beyond that, I feel like it's going to be quite difficult to predict what we're going to be getting on the Switch 2 in terms of games, and so I'll be doing a quick little Spitfire round to go through a couple of them. Highly unlikely a new Zelda, maybe a 2D or 3D one, although we did get Echoes of Wisdom last year and Tears of the Kingdom the year before. I can see maybe a remastered version of an older Zelda title popping up here, maybe Ocarina of Time 3D HD or something like that. A Splatoon spin-off or Splatoon 4, as pretty much with the Switch, we had Splatoon 2 in the first couple of months, and I feel like it's a game Nintendo wants to have out as quickly as possible, as it's kind of taking notes off of real life with how the stage selection works and a few of the other modes that are available at a certain point in time. But I feel like it's maybe a bit too soon, as the last Splatfest was only last year, but 3 did come out in 2022, so I feel like this one's possible, but a little more difficult to predict. I just really want to talk about Fire Emblem, as the last installment we got was Fire Emblem Engage back in January of 2023, and we usually get a new entry in this series once every 3 to 4-ish years. Yes, I know now it's only been 2, but maybe they're already cooking something. Maybe they'll just show like a logo or something, and it's gonna come out in about a year or something, kind of like what happened with Fire Emblem Three Houses, which later got delayed. But I feel like it's one of the more realistic games that we can expect to see. It might be a bit too early to call, but I almost forgot to include Kirby. I feel like HAL will have something Kirby related, whether it's 2D or 3D, ready to go with the Switch as well. Not necessarily at launch, but sometime in the first year. Those are just some of the games that I predicted, but I can't wait to see what the talented developers of some of the companies such as Monolith Soft or some of the third-party developers have planned for this new, more powerful system. Before we end things, I just really like to talk about some of the controllers, as I feel like the original Joy-Con and Pro controllers can still be used, but just be paired via Bluetooth rather than by sliding them on there for the Joy-Cons. The Switch Pro controller itself is perfect as is, but I am going to be predicting that they're going to be making some type of new controller, whether it's going to be called a Pro controller or something completely different. I feel like they want to push something new. Although in my opinion, the Pro controller for the Nintendo Switch is, outside maybe the GameCube controller, the best controller Nintendo's ever made. I'm really excited and can't wait to see what the Switch 2 has in store for us, as these were just some of the predictions, but Nintendo themselves, they like to do things themselves a lot more differently. There's a reason why people that usually predict these types of things have it wrong, so it's gonna be great looking back at this video later and seeing how much of it I got wrong. Nintendo as a company likes to go for the out of left field type of options, so hey, maybe I'll have a few things here correct, but who knows. Either way, I'm really excited for the Nintendo Switch 2 and can't wait to play it at the pre-release event and get it here day one and make so much content on it. So make sure you're subscribed so you won't miss any of it, and I hope to see you all next time. Goodbye.